if your heart is heavy today, if the noise of the world feels too loud, if the burden you carry seems too great for your shoulders, then I want you to know you are exactly where you're meant to be. Take a deep, slow breath. This is not a moment for hurried thoughts or stress planning. It is a sacred space we are creating together, a sanctuary of rest beneath the quiet, endless expanse of the stars. Imagine the sky above you right now, a deep velvet canvas dusted with millions of distant lights. Each one is a silent reminder of a scale far vaster than your daily anxieties, a quiet promise of an order and a peace that exists beyond the chaos of your immediate reality. Your exhaustion, your confusion, your deepest questions, they are welcomed here, not as problems to be solved immediately, but as invitations to lean into a timeless, gentle wisdom. We are going to quiet the urgent demands of the ego, the constant striving for control, and simply listen to the echoes of two profound voices, the one that grapples with the fleeting nature of life, and the one that calls us to steadfast, active faith. Both voices, separated by centuries, ultimately point to the same enduring truth. Our rest, our meaning, and our deepest satisfaction are found not in the things we accumulate or the fleeting moments we chase, but in a reverent, humble awareness of the divine and a gentle, loving kindness toward one another. Let the words wash over you, not as harsh commands, but as a soft, comforting whisper guiding you back to the center of your soul. This is your moment to drop anchor in the stillness, to surrender the need to know everything, and to simply be held by a love that is older and wider than the sea. Before we dive deeper into this journey of rest and truth, if this space, this gentle tone, this moment of spiritual breathing resonates with you, I warmly invite you to become a part of our quiet community. Please take a moment right now to subscribe to this channel. By doing so, you help us keep this sanctuary open for others who are searching for peace, just like you are. And as we move through these ancient, comforting texts, I have a gentle request for interaction that I believe will deepen your own personal reflection. I want you to listen carefully for the single word or phrase that truly stops you, the one that makes you pause and inhale deeply. It might be a word of challenge or a word of pure comfort or a simple observation about life. When you find that word or phrase, hold it in your heart, and then, after you have listened to the entire reflection, I invite you to share only that single word or short phrase in the comments below. No long explanation needed, just that one captured thought. Let us create a quiet mosaic of shared spiritual anchors. Let's see which truths resonate most deeply across our community tonight. Your single word is a powerful testimony, a quiet sharing that connects us all in the journey of faith and discovery. Now, close your eyes if you are able, or simply soften your gaze and let us begin this meditative reading. We begin our journey tonight with the timeless, profound, and often sobering voice of the teacher from the book of Ecclesiastes. Listen closely to a wisdom that wrestled with the entire spectrum of human experience, from the highest joys to the deepest disillusionment. His voice is the voice of one who had everything, who tried everything, and yet found a haunting emptiness at the core of it all. He takes us through a rigorous, almost scientific exploration of what life is like when God is left out of the equation, or when we look for ultimate meaning only in the things that pass away. He calls it hevel, which is often translated as meaningless, but truly means something like vapor, smoke, or a chasing after the wind, something ultimately fleeting and unsubstantial, slipping through your fingers the moment you try to grasp it. Do not let the seriousness of his reflection disturb your peace. Rather, let it be the grounding force that prepares you to receive the deeper, more enduring wisdom. The teacher opens the book by laying out the sheer, relentless repetition of the natural world, the unceasing cycles that seem to accomplish nothing new. The sun rises and hurries back to rise again. The wind blows in perpetual circles, and the rivers flow into the sea. Yet the sea is never full. All things are wearying, more than one can say, and the eye is never satisfied with seeing, nor the ear with hearing. This rhythmic monotony, this endless repetition, is a profound mirror of our own lives when we look only at the surface. Generation follows generation, yet the earth remains the same. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing truly new under the sun. The teacher, reflecting on his own life of unparalleled royalty and wisdom in Jerusalem, applied his mind to search and explore everything done under heaven. He found it to be a heavy, painful burden laid on all humanity, a tedious toil. He saw that the crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted. He recognized that with much wisdom comes much sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief. He then decided to test his spirit with pleasure, to see if happiness could be found in indulgence and acquisition. He denied himself nothing. He built magnificent projects, houses, vineyards, gardens, and parks. He created reservoirs, acquired immense wealth in silver and gold, singers and servants, more than anyone before him in Jerusalem. He became great, surpassing all others, and he held nothing back from his heart's desire. Every pleasure his eyes craved, his heart possessed. And in all of this, his wisdom remained with him, guiding his exploration. He truly experienced the height of human possibility, the peak of what the world offers in terms of material success and sensory delight. His heart delighted in his labor, and this was his reward. But when he looked back upon the entirety of his achievements, everything his hands had done, everything he had toiled to accomplish, he reached the same stark conclusion. It was all meaningless, a complete chasing after the wind, and there was absolutely no lasting gain from it under the sun. It was an overwhelming sense of emptiness, following an equally overwhelming effort. This realization led him to turn his attention to wisdom, madness, and folly, comparing them to one another. He saw clearly that wisdom is superior to folly, just as light is better than darkness. The wise person has eyes in his head, seeing the path, while the fool walks in the dark. Yet, a further, more disturbing truth dawned on him. The same fate overtakes them both. The wise, like the fool, will not be long remembered. In the days to come, both are forgotten. Just as the fool must die, so too must the wise. The ultimate end negates the supposed advantage of wisdom in this life. Because of this stark realization of shared mortality, he confessed. He began to hate life, for the work that is done under the sun seemed grievous to him. All of it just vapor and a chasing after the wind. He hated the thought of leaving his immense wealth, the fruit of all his toil and skill, to a successor who might be a complete fool or a complete wise man, someone who would control what he had worked so hard for. This felt meaningless and a great misfortune. What then, he asks, does a person get for all their toil, the anxious striving, and the weary labor they endure under the sun? All their days are filled with grief and pain, and even at night their minds do not rest. This, too, is declared meaningless. But the teacher does not leave us in utter despair. He offers a practical, God-centered perspective on how to navigate this inherent hevel. He suggests that a person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their own toil, seeing this as a direct gift from the hand of God. To the person who pleases him, God gives wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. But to the sinner, God gives the task of gathering and storing up wealth, only to hand it over to the one who pleases him. This too is seen as meaningless and a chasing after the wind. Thus we find the first great lesson. Contentment and true enjoyment of life are not earned by striving, but are received as a spiritual gift, a grace note in a world of unavoidable toil. As we transition into the next chapter, the teacher shifts his focus to practical conduct, particularly in our spiritual life, and how we interact with authority and wealth. He advises us to guard our steps when we go to the house of God, to go near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools who do not realize they are doing wrong. We are cautioned not to be quick with our mouth or hasty in our heart to utter anything before God. The distance between God in heaven and us on earth should make our words few and considered. Just as a dream comes with many cares, so too does foolishness mark the speech of a fool. When a vow is made to God, we are told not to delay fulfilling it, for God has no pleasure in fools. It is better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it. We must not let our mouth lead us into sin or later protest that the vow was a mistake, incurring God's anger and the destruction of our work. Ultimately, much dreaming and many words are also deemed meaningless, and the proper response to this reality is to fear God. The teacher then addresses the reality of oppression and injustice in the world. If we see the poor oppressed in a district, and justice and rights denied, we should not be surprised. The system of authority is layered. One official is watched by a higher one, and over them all are others higher still, culminating in the king who profits from the land. The world structure often protects the powerful at the expense of the weak. This observation leads to an exploration of wealth. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This, too, is declared meaningless. As possessions increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit are they to the owner, except to feast their eyes on them? The simple laborer, who eats little or much, enjoys sweet sleep, while the rich, in their abundance, are often kept awake by anxiety and worry. He recounts a grievous evil he has seen: wealth hoarded to the harm of its owners, or lost through misfortune, leaving nothing for the children to inherit. A profound truth about mortality is then stated. Everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and just as they come, so they depart. They take nothing from their toil that they can carry in their hands. This, he repeats, is a grievous evil, as they toil only for the wind, spending their days in darkness with frustration, affliction, and anger. Yet the positive counsel surfaces again. It is good and appropriate for a person to eat, to drink, and to find satisfaction in their toil during the few days of life God has given them. This acceptance of one's lot and the ability to enjoy it when given by God is a true gift, a source of gladness that keeps a person from dwelling too much on the brevity of their life. Moving forward, the reflection turns to the painful reality of oppression and the loneliness of the individual. He looked and saw all the oppression taking place under the sun, the tears of the oppressed with no one to comfort them, and power on the side of their oppressors. In light of this pervasive injustice, he declared that the dead who have already died are happier than the living, but better than both is the one who has never been born, who has not seen the evil done under the sun. He also observed that all toil and achievement spring from one person's envy of another, calling this meaningless and a chasing after the wind. He criticized the folly of the person who folds their hands and ruins themselves through idleness, but also the futility of excessive toil. He finds a simple wisdom Better one handful with tranquility than 2 handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. He then paints a picture of a lonely, driven individual, a man all alone, with neither son nor brother, whose toil had no end, yet his eyes were never content with his wealth. He questioned the purpose of his toil and self-deprivation, concluding it was a miserable, meaningless business. This reflection leads to one of the most comforting observations in the book, the immense value of companionship. 2 are better than 1, because they have a good return for their labor. If one falls, the other can help them up, while pity falls upon the one who falls and has no one to help them. If 2 lie down together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And finally, the symbol of enduring strength. Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. And a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. This highlights that while individual ambition is often meaningless, connection and community, especially the threefold cord of human relationship centered on the divine, holds lasting strength and meaning. The teacher then observes the phenomenon of an old, foolish king who no longer heeds a warning, contrasting him with a poor but wise youth who rises to power. While the crowds follow the successor, those who come later are not pleased with the new king. Even this cycle of leadership and popularity is deemed meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Every human system eventually disappoints and proves to be temporary. The true, enduring wisdom, however, is better than weapons of war, but even one sinner can destroy much good. This constant tension between the ideal and the reality, between the desire for lasting meaning and the observation of pervasive hevel, defines the journey through Ecclesiastes. It prepares the soul not for despair, but for a simple, deep, and grounded faith that transcends the fleeting things of this world. The ultimate wisdom, he notes, is hidden from man. When a sentence for a crime is not quickly carried out, people's hearts are filled with schemes to do wrong. Although a wicked person may live a long time and commit many crimes, he knows that ultimately it will go better with those who fear God. Yet he still sees the perplexing reality of the righteous receiving what the wicked deserve, and the wicked receiving what the righteous deserve. This, too, he confesses, is meaningless. In the face of this incomprehensible reality, he again returns to his practical advice, commending the enjoyment of life, to eat, drink, and be glad, because there is nothing better for a person under the sun. He also explores the notion that no one knows when their hour will come, just as fish are caught in a cruel net, or birds are taken in a snare. People are trapped by evil times that fall unexpectedly upon them. This randomness, this lack of control over one's ultimate fate, is another source of the feeling of meaninglessness. He recalls the story of a small city saved by a poor but wise man whose wisdom was then despised and his words unheeded. The quiet words of the wise are more to be heeded than the shouts of a ruler of fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, yet one sinner destroys much good. This inability of wisdom to secure lasting fame or power, and its vulnerability to the actions of a single fool, only underlines the pervasive hevel. Finally, the teacher's own summation is the most powerful. He looked back upon his vast wisdom, his rigorous testing of pleasure and labor, and his detailed observations of injustice and fate. And he concluded that while God created mankind upright, they have gone in search of many schemes. He sought to understand the stupidity of wickedness and the madness of folly, finding that a certain kind of destructive woman is more bitter than death, a trap from which only the man who pleases God will escape. But the core lesson remains. We cannot discover the ultimate meaning of things. We cannot comprehend the work of God. It is far off and most profound. Therefore, our focus must return to the simple, accessible truth. Live your life with gladness and enjoy the days God has given you, for this is your lot. And whatever your hand find to do, do it with all your might, knowing that in the realm of the dead where you are going, there is no work, no planning, no knowledge, and no wisdom. This is the profound call to presence and wholehearted engagement in the now. Our greatest joy is found in the simple, present moment of acceptance. We shift now from the reflective search for meaning in the world of Ecclesiastes to the fiery, practical, and utterly demanding wisdom found in the letter of James. If Ecclesiastes was the voice of the philosopher observing life's sub-soul under the sun, James is the voice of the pastor, the servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, calling the scattered tribes of believers to a life lived sub specie aeternitatis, under the aspect of eternity. His words are not a gentle meditation, but a sharp, clear summons to make our faith visible, tangible, and active in the way we treat the poor, the way we speak, and the way we handle the trials that inevitably cross our path. James doesn't tolerate hypocrisy. He demands consistency between what we believe in our heart and what we do with our hands. He is focused on the immediate ethical response of a true believer, contrasting the earthly, self-serving wisdom with the gentle, peace-loving wisdom that comes from heaven. Listen then to his opening call to endurance. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know with absolute certainty that the testing of your faith is not a meaningless obstacle, but a divine process designed to produce perseverance. And this perseverance, this patient enduring, must be allowed to finish its work fully, so that you may become mature and complete, lacking absolutely nothing that is required for a life of purpose and peace. This is the radical Christian perspective on suffering. Not something to be avoided at all costs, but something to be embraced for the spiritual refinement it brings. It transforms the difficulty from a mere event of pain into a purposeful tool in the hand of a loving Father. It is a profound shift from the despair of Ecclesiastes, which saw unexpected evil times as a cruel snare, to the hope of James, who sees trials as an opportunity for profound spiritual development. If, in the midst of this testing, you find yourself lacking wisdom, if you don't know how to persevere or why you should, James offers a direct, powerful solution. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But this asking is not a casual request. It is a profound act of faith. When you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts the very power and willingness of God to answer is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. Such a person, double-minded and unstable in all they do, should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. This is a call for a unified heart, a singularity of purpose in our relationship with God, where our doubt does not undermine the power of our prayer. It contrasts sharply with the uncertainty of the teacher, who searched with his mind and found the ultimate scheme of things far off and most profound, concluding that human effort cannot discover it. James asserts that divine wisdom, the blueprint for a meaningful life, is immediately accessible to the humble and believing heart that asks for it. James then addresses the social and economic tensions within the community, offering a stark reminder of how God views status and wealth. Believers in humble circumstances, the poor, the marginalized, the struggling, ought to take pride in their high position as heirs of God's kingdom. Conversely, the rich should take pride in their humiliation, realizing that their wealth, much like the wild flower that rises with scorching heat, withers, its blossom falls, and its beauty is destroyed. The rich person will fade away even while they go about their business, a sobering echo of Ecclesiastes' warning about the fleeting nature of wealth. But James connects this brevity not to meaninglessness, but to a moral responsibility. Blessed, he asserts, is the one who perseveres under trial, for having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. The letter continues, moving from endurance to the very source of temptation and sin, offering a crucial correction to any who might blame God for their failings. He insists, when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. Instead, each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Desire, having conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. This is the chain of corruption, the internal process that leads to destruction. We are not victims of circumstance or arbitrary divine tests. We are accountable for the inner desire that leads us astray. In powerful contrast to this, James reminds us that every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. This God chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of all He created. The implication is clear. God only gives good, life-giving gifts. Anything that leads to sin and death is an internal human corruption of desire. This understanding of God's unchanging goodness leads to a very practical ethical imperative in our daily behavior. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger absolutely does not produce the righteousness that God desires. It is a roadblock to spiritual maturity. Therefore, we are commanded to get rid of all moral filth and the prevalent evil, and humbly accept the word planted in us, which has the power to save our souls. The core of James's teaching on conduct is the absolute necessity of doing what the word says, not merely listening and deceiving ourselves. The person who listens but does not act is like someone who looks intently at his own face in a mirror, but immediately walks away and forgets what they look like. But the one who looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, that person will be profoundly blessed in what they do. James then defines true, faultless religion in a revolutionary, practical sense, stripping away any pretense of mere ritual or empty worship. Religion that the Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, and it is a twofold command of mercy and self-control: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. This is a profound call to embodied compassion and active spiritual resistance, demanding that our faith translate directly into social justice and personal holiness. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is the antidote to the vapid pursuits of the teacher. The active, compassionate life lived in the presence of an unchanging God. Senhor, que a tua luz também brilhe nas partes da minha vida que ainda estão em sombra. Dá-me a graça de ser rápido para ouvir e lento para a raiva, para que a tua palavra encontre solo fértil no meu coração. Em nome de Jesus, Amém. The next critical challenge James addresses is the issue of favoritism within the community of believers, a sin he calls out with searing directness. He tells the scattered tribes that their faith in the glorious Lord Jesus Christ must not be accompanied by discrimination. He presents a vivid, unforgettable scenario. Imagine a man in your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes, and a poor man in filthy old clothes also enters. If you show special attention to the wealthy man, saying, "Here's a good seat for you," but tell the poor man, "You stand there," or "Sit on the floor by my feet," You have not only discriminated among yourselves, but have become judges with evil thoughts. This is a betrayal of the gospel itself. James reminds the community that God has purposefully chosen those who are poor in the eyes of the world to be rich in faith and to inherit the kingdom. Yet, the believers have dishonored the poor, instead flattering the rich who are often the ones exploiting them, dragging them into court, and blaspheming the noble name. The commandment that should guide all social interaction, the royal law found in Scripture, is this: love your neighbor as yourself. If the community truly keeps this law, they are doing right. But if they show favoritism, they sin and are convicted as lawbreakers. James uses a brilliant legal argument. Whoever keeps the whole law yet stumbles at just one point is guilty of breaking all of it. For the one who said, "You shall not commit adultery," also said, "You shall not murder." If you avoid adultery but commit murder, you are still a lawbreaker. The message is holistic. The law of God is a unified whole, and the sin of favoritism against the poor is a violation just as severe as the most shocking ethical failures. He commands us to speak and act as those who are going to be judged by the law that gives freedom, emphasizing that judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. This is the profound, beautiful paradox of the gospel. Mercy triumphs over judgment. It is a call to a radical, unconditional compassion that recognizes the inherent dignity of every human being, regardless of their social standing or material possessions. The way we treat the most vulnerable among us is the absolute litmus test of our faith. This leads directly into James's most famous and often debated passage, the relationship between faith and deeds. He asks the rhetorical question that cuts to the core of passive religiosity. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? He paints another clear picture. Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you simply says to them, "Go in peace," keep warm and well fed, but does nothing about their physical needs, what possible good is that? In the very same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. James confronts the spiritual rationalization that separates belief from behavior, a separation that he views as utterly hypocritical and ultimately useless. Someone may try to argue, "You have faith, I have deeds." To this, James offers the challenge: show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by my deeds. Belief in the existence of a single God is not enough, he argues, because even the demons believe that and shudder. Belief is the starting point, but obedience is the true evidence. To prove his point, he cites two foundational figures of Jewish faith, Abraham and Rahab. Abraham was considered righteous when he offered his son Isaac on the altar. showing that his faith and his actions were working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. Rahab the prostitute was also considered righteous for her actions when she gave lodging to the spies and sent them off in a different direction. The conclusion is stark and unmistakable. A person is considered righteous by what they do, and not by faith alone. The body without the spirit is dead, and likewise, faith without deeds is dead. This is the culmination of the call to active, embodied faith, transforming the theoretical acceptance of a belief system into a living, breathing reality of ethical conduct and compassionate service. We now turn our attention to the intense, practical warnings of James concerning the power of the tongue, a section of his letter that serves as a profound examination of the true difficulty of sanctification and the deceptive nature of our own speech. If our hands must demonstrate our faith through deeds, James makes it clear that our mouths must prove our maturity through restraint. This wisdom is immediately preceded by a sober caution. Not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. This high standard for teachers highlights the immense responsibility of every word spoken, a responsibility amplified because James admits we all stumble in many ways. The person who can control their speech entirely, who is never at fault in what they say, is truly perfect, able to keep their whole body in check, an acknowledgement of the tongue's untamed nature. To emphasize the incredible power lodged within this small part of the body, James uses three vivid, unforgettable images from the everyday world. First, he speaks of the bit in a horse's mouth, a very small piece of metal placed in the mouth makes the mighty, powerful horse completely obedient, allowing the rider to turn and guide the entire animal wherever they want. Second, he speaks of the rudder of a ship. Even though ships are enormous and are driven by powerful winds, they are steered by a very small rudder, which dictates the entire course of the vessel wherever the pilot wants to go. The analogy is precise and alarming. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. The tongue, though diminutive, possesses the power to set the entire course of a life, for good or for ill. The third and most terrifying image is that of the fire. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue is precisely this spark. It is itself a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole person, sets the entire course of one's life ablaze, and is itself set on fire by hell. The language is hyperbolic only to underscore the catastrophic consequences of unchecked speech. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and sea creatures are being tamed and have been tamed by mankind, a powerful testament to human ingenuity and control. Yet, James asserts the sobering truth that No human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. This inherent, almost demonic difficulty in controlling our words reveals the depth of human brokenness and the absolute necessity of divine grace for true, consistent holiness. The ultimate hypocrisy stemming from this untamed power is then laid bare. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse human beings who have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth comes both praise and cursing. James finds this spiritual duality utterly illogical and unacceptable. My brothers and sisters, this should not be. Can both fresh water and salt water flow from the same spring? Can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water. The nature of the source determines the nature of the outflow. Therefore, if our heart is truly redeemed and dedicated to God, the output of our tongue must be consistently pure, gracious, and life-giving. The existence of cursing, slander, and bitter speech reveals a deep inconsistency and a heart that is still double-minded. This call for ethical speech flows directly into James's final, profound definition of true wisdom. He asks the vital question, who is wise and understanding among you? The answer is not in philosophical claims or theological prowess, but in the practical, observable reality of one's life. Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. This returns to the core thesis of the letter. Faith is proven by deeds, and wisdom is proven by humility. He then describes a counterfeit wisdom, a wisdom that does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. This is the wisdom that is fueled by bitter envy and selfish ambition in the heart. Where these destructive passions reside, you find disorder and every kind of evil practice. This self-serving, competitive spirit is the very opposite of the Christian life. In stunning contrast, James defines the wisdom that comes from heaven, outlining 7 essential transformative characteristics. This divine wisdom is, first of all, pure, untainted by selfish motives or moral compromise. It is then peace-loving, seeking reconciliation and harmony over conflict and victory. It is considerate, marked by a gentle deference to others' needs and feelings. It is submissive, willing to yield to others and to the divine will, without arrogant insistence on its own way. It is full of mercy and good fruit, demonstrating compassion and producing observable, beneficial results. It is impartial, refusing to show the kind of favoritism that James previously condemned. And finally, it is sincere, utterly free of hypocrisy or pretense. The result of this heavenly wisdom is the creation of a righteous community. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. The humble, active, and pure life of a believer guided by this divine wisdom, transforms the world around them, making them agents of God's peace and justice. This is the goal of our transformation: to stop chasing the wind of earthly ambition and to start cultivating the enduring, peace-filled harvest of God's wisdom, demonstrated in every word we speak and every act of compassion we perform. The wisdom of Ecclesiastes found ultimate meaning elusive in the natural order. The wisdom of James finds ultimate meaning immediately present in the active, merciful imitation of Christ. We continue our journey through the intense and clarifying wisdom of James, who now addresses the deepest roots of conflict, both personal and communal, directing his gaze inward to the battleground of the human heart. After detailing the consequences of an untamed tongue and the necessity of deeds, he dives into the core question of relational chaos. What causes fights and quarrels among you? The answer he provides is sharp and inescapable. Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? This profound insight acknowledges that the external turmoil we experience in our relationships, the conflicts, the arguments, the community discord, is merely the symptom of a much deeper internal war fueled by our own unmet selfish desires. James sketches the destructive, logical progression of desire. When it is untethered from God's will, you desire what you do not have, so you resort to extreme, hateful actions, metaphorically or literally. You kill. You covet what belongs to others, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. The outcome is continuous striving and internal unhappiness. He pinpoints the immediate spiritual failure that prevents fulfillment. You do not have because you do not ask God. This lack of prayer, or rather, this lack of dependence on the only true source of all good gifts, is the first stumbling block. But James is quick to expose a second, more insidious failure in prayer itself. When you ask, you do not receive, because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. This is the prayer of the self-serving heart, the prayer that seeks to use God as a means to satisfy the lusts and ambitions of the ego, rather than seeking the kingdom and God's righteousness. This selfish motivation corrupts the very act of worship and invalidates the petition. The focus is entirely on personal gratification, completely disconnected from the selfless, peace-loving wisdom James previously described. He then elevates this failure to an indictment of spiritual infidelity, addressing his readers with a startling term: "You adulterous people." This severe language underscores a profound spiritual truth. Choosing to pursue selfish, worldly desires is not merely a moral misstep. It is an act of betrayal against God. Don't you know that friendship with the world means enmity against God? The choice is absolute and mutually exclusive. Therefore, Anyone who deliberately chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. This challenges the believer to examine where their ultimate loyalty lies, in the fleeting systems and desires of the world, or in the enduring will and purity of God. This concept echoes the teacher's observation of everything under the sun being hevel, but James gives it a moral and covenantal weight. James reminds us of the profound jealousy of the divine Spirit dwelling within us. Or do you think Scripture says without reason that he jealously longs for the Spirit he has caused to dwell in us? This holy jealousy is not a petty human emotion, but the fervent, protective love of a Creator who desires the purity and singular devotion of his creation. But in the face of our betrayal, he offers boundless grace, but he gives us more grace. This overflow of grace is the basis for true repentance and transformation. The remedy for selfish ambition and worldliness is encapsulated in a profound spiritual principle. God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble. Humility, then, is the posture required to receive the grace that conquers our desires. The path to peace and restoration is clearly outlined by James as a series of radical, heartfelt actions. First, submit yourselves then to God. This surrender of the ego, this yielding of our will to the divine, is the foundational step. Second, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. When we stand firm in our submission to God, the forces of temptation lose their power. Third, and most beautifully, come near to God, and he will come near to you. This is the promise of intimate, reciprocal presence, the antidote to the lonely toil of Ecclesiastes. The final steps are acts of deep, heart-wrenching repentance. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Hands must be washed of external, active sin. Hearts must be purified of internal, contradictory motives. The double-minded person, whose desires pull them in two directions, must choose God alone. This purification requires a radical emotional response. Grieve, mourn, and wail. Change your laughter to mourning and your joy to gloom. This is not a call to perpetual despair, but a necessary deep repentance over the pain and disloyalty caused by our sin. Only after this profound self-humiliation is the ultimate promise given. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. God's ultimate desire is not to crush us, but to raise us from the dust of our selfish failures. Following this powerful call to repentance, James returns to the theme of the tongue, applying the concept of worldliness directly to the sin of slander and judgment. Brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sister or judges them speaks against the law and judges it. When we take on the role of the judge, we are not keeping the law of love. We are elevating ourselves above it. He reminds us that there is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. In the presence of the one supreme judge, the question becomes piercingly simple. But you, who are you to judge your neighbor? The act of judging our neighbor is a usurpation of God's sole authority, another manifestation of the pride God opposes. James then addresses another profound temptation of worldliness, the arrogant assumption of control over the future, a direct contradiction of the wisdom of Ecclesiastes, which stated that no one knows what is coming. Now listen, you who say, "Today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money." James cuts through this confident, self-reliant planning with a stark reality check. Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. This image of life as a fleeting, temporary mist is one of the most powerful reminders of human fragility and the ultimate dominion of God, echoing the vaporous nature of Hevel. The true spiritual posture required for planning is one of humble dependence. Instead, you ought to say, "If it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that." The phrase "Insha'Allah," if God wills, or its equivalent, is the only appropriate expression of future intention for the believer. To boast in arrogant, autonomous schemes is to commit evil. All such boasting is morally wrong. James concludes this section with a final, concise definition of sin, tying all his practical commands together. Sin is not just the things we do, but the good we fail to do. If anyone, then, knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. This is the sin of omission, the failure to embody the active, merciful faith that is full of good deeds, the failure to obey the royal law of love. It is the final, compelling challenge to every believer to align their knowledge with their action, their faith with their deeds, and their desires with God's will. This completes the radical shift from the teacher's observation that what is crooked cannot be straightened to James's conviction that the heart can be purified and the life lifted up by the grace and wisdom of God. We return now to the philosophical, existential landscape of Ecclesiastes, allowing the teacher to ground us once more in the humbling realities of human experience. Having absorbed the sharp ethical demands of James, we now need the meditative balance of the one who sought wisdom and pleasure, only to find the recurring theme of Hevel, the vapor, the fleeting, insubstantial nature of life lived solely under the sun. This section of the teacher's reflection focuses particularly on the paradox of wisdom, the nature of suffering and injustice, and the profound importance of time and chance in the affairs of humanity. His reflections are not meant to negate James's call to action, but to humble our expectations of earthly reward and secure success, reminding us that even the most skillful efforts are subject to forces beyond our control. The teacher, having pursued knowledge relentlessly, came to understand that the benefits of wisdom are often overshadowed by the universal fate of mortality and the unpredictability of life. He observed that while a person's wisdom brightens their face and changes its hard appearance, bringing them closer to the explanation of things, this wisdom is not an absolute shield. He delves into the practical wisdom of civil obedience, advising one to obey the king's command because of the oath taken before God, cautioning against hurrying away from the king's presence or standing up for a bad cause. This is a pragmatic wisdom, recognizing the supremacy of royal power. Since a king's word is supreme, who can question, "What are you doing?" The wise heart, he notes, will know the proper time and procedure for every matter, even though a person may be weighed down by misery. This is the attempt to navigate the meaningless world with skill and timing. But the futility of human control quickly reasserts itself. He acknowledges that there is indeed a proper time and procedure for every matter, but immediately pivots to the human inability to grasp the future. Since no one knows the future, who can tell someone else what is to come? Just as no one has power over the wind to contain it, so too does no one have power over the time of their death. And just as no one is discharged in time of war, wickedness will not release those who practice it. The twin forces of fate and death are presented as the ultimate, inescapable limits on human autonomy, a powerful echo of James's warning that our life is but a vanishing mist. The teacher's observation of moral disorder is deeply troubling. He saw the wicked buried, those who used to come and go from the holy place and receive praise in the very city where they did evil. This too, he declared, is meaningless. When the sentence for a crime is not quickly carried out, people's hearts are filled with schemes to do wrong. Although a wicked person may commit 100 crimes and live a long time, the teacher holds onto a sliver of faith. He knows that it will go better with those who fear God and are reverent before Him. Yet the perverse reality remains. The wicked do not fear God, and they often prosper, a frustrating puzzle of injustice under the sun. He saw something else deeply meaningless that occurs on earth. The righteous who get what the wicked deserve, and the wicked who get what the righteous deserve. This arbitrary reversal of moral reward and consequence drives him once more to the core comfort. So I commend the enjoyment of life, because there is nothing better for a person under the sun than to eat and drink and be glad. This simple joy, accompanying their toil, is all that God has given them for the days of their life. When the teacher applied his mind to know wisdom and to observe the labor that is done on earth, people losing sleep day and night, he concluded that no one can comprehend all that God has done. Despite all their efforts, no one can discover the true meaning of it all. Even if the wise claim they know, they cannot truly comprehend it. This absolute boundary on human knowledge is the humility required to receive God's gift of simple contentment. The pursuit of wisdom then takes a turn towards practical ethics and emotional regulation, a prelude to the clarity of James. The teacher reflects that a good name is better than a fine perfume, and the day of death better than the day of birth. This is a radical revaluation of life and mortality. It is better to go to a house of mourning than to a house of feasting, because death is the destiny of everyone, and the living should take this to heart. Mourning, which provokes reflection, is better than frivolous laughter, because a sad face can be good for the heart. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, while the heart of the fools is in the house of pleasure. He offers sharp counsel on rebuke and patience. It is better to heed the rebuke of a wise person than to listen to the song of fools, whose laughter is like the crackling of thorns under a pot, brief, loud, and useless. He warns that extortion turns a wise person into a fool, and a bribe corrupts the heart. He extols the virtue of patience. The end of a matter is better than its beginning, and patience is better than pride. We are instructed not to be quickly provoked in our spirit, for anger resides in the lap of fools. And we must avoid the nostalgic folly of asking, why were the old days better than these? Because it is not wise to ask such questions. Wisdom, like an inheritance, is good and benefits those who see the sun. Wisdom is a shelter, just as money is a shelter. But the unique advantage of knowledge is this: wisdom preserves those who have it. The reflection then pivots again to the necessary acknowledgement of God's sovereignty. Consider what God has done. Who can straighten what he has made crooked? This echoes the earlier lament that what is crooked cannot be straightened. The answer is no one. When times are good, we are to be happy, but when times are bad, we must consider that God has made one as well as the other, ensuring that no one can discover anything about their future. This is the theological foundation for the acceptance of life's inevitable ups and downs. The teacher observes the perplexing sight of the righteous perishing in their righteousness, and the wicked living long in their wickedness. In response, he gives a nuanced, balanced command. Do not be over-righteous, neither be over-wise. Why destroy yourself? Do not be over-wicked, and do not be a fool. Why die before your time? The balance lies in grasping the one and not letting go of the other. The key to navigating life's extremes is the fear of God, which allows one to avoid all excess. Wisdom, he states, makes one wise person more powerful than 10 rulers in a city. But he immediately tempers this with the inescapable reality of human fallibility. Indeed, there is no one on earth who is righteous, no one who does what is right and never sins. This leads to a final personal counsel on how to deal with the constant negativity and judgment of others. We are advised not to pay attention to every word people say, or we may hear our own servant cursing us. The painful irony is that we know in our own heart that many times we ourselves have cursed others. This is a call to radical self-awareness and self-forgiveness, recognizing that if we are all flawed, we must stop listening to the flaws of others and forgive them, just as we need to forgive ourselves. The teacher tested all of this by wisdom, determined to be wise, but found the ultimate scheme of things to be far off and most profound. He concluded, once more, that God created mankind upright, but they have gone in search of many schemes, losing the simplicity of their intended design. We continue the journey of Ecclesiastes, moving deeper into the teacher's relentless analysis of the inequities and frustrations inherent in human existence, especially concerning wealth, labor, and the illusion of satisfaction. His eye is fixed on the injustices that permeate the material world, offering observations that are as relevant today as they were millennia ago, highlighting the deep spiritual discontent that accompanies material striving. This section builds upon the theme of Hevel by examining specific failures in human attempts to secure happiness through accumulation and effort. The teacher begins by exposing what he calls another evil under the sun, and it weighs heavily on mankind. This is the tragedy of prosperity without enjoyment. God grants some people immense wealth, possessions, and honor, so that they lack nothing their hearts desire, the pinnacle of worldly success. Yet, in a cruel twist of fate, God does not grant them the ability to enjoy them. Instead, strangers enjoy them. This deprivation of the simple ability to enjoy one's own blessings is deemed meaningless and a grievous evil. This is a stark reminder that enjoyment is not a guaranteed product of achievement. It is a spiritual gift, entirely dependent on God's grace, echoing the earlier conclusion that to eat, drink, and be glad is from the hand of God. He magnifies this misfortune with a vivid, paradoxical image of a life lived long but unsatisfied. A man may have 100 children and live many years, even 1,000 years twice over. But if he cannot enjoy his prosperity and does not receive a proper burial, the teacher asserts a shocking truth. I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. The stillborn child comes without meaning, departs in darkness, and its name is shrouded, never having seen the sun or known anything. But it possesses a deeper, more profound rest than the man who failed to enjoy his immense, long-lived prosperity. This underscores that the quality of life is determined by contentment, not chronology or quantity. The teacher observes the universal nature of human toil. Everyone's toil is for their mouth, yet their appetite is never satisfied. What advantage, he asks, do the wise truly have over the fools in this incessant, unsatisfying striving? What do the poor gain by knowing how to conduct themselves before others? The constant, unfulfilled appetite drives the whole system of meaningless labor. His counsel remains practical and grounded. Better what the eye sees than the roving of the appetite. It is better to find satisfaction in the tangible reality of the present moment than to be driven by the insatiable, restless desire for what is distant or what one does not possess. This roving appetite is also dismissed as meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Returning to the theme of human limitation, he reflects on fate and foreknowledge. Whatever exists has already been named, and what humanity is has been known. No one can contend with someone who is stronger, a reference both to powerful earthly rulers and to the ultimate sovereignty of God. He notes that the more words there are, the less the meaning, questioning the profit of verbose discourse. The pivotal question remains unanswered by human effort. For who knows what is good for a person in life during the few and meaningless days they pass through like a shadow? And who can tell them what will happen under the sun after they are gone? The brevity and uncertainty of life, the fleeting shadow, is the inescapable reality that necessitates a spiritual rather than material anchor. The reflection shifts to the vital importance of proper spiritual and social conduct, moving towards a more structured moral framework. We are urged to guard your steps when you go to the house of God, and to go near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools who do not know that they do wrong. This prioritizes sincere, quiet attentiveness over empty, thoughtless ritual. The heart must be engaged before the hands can act correctly in worship. The teacher again addresses the use of the mouth in prayer and vow-making, emphasizing reverence and restraint. Do not be quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart to utter anything before God. The reason is theological and spatial. God is in heaven, and we are on earth, so our words must be few. Hasty, ill-considered speech is the hallmark of the fool. The commitment made in a vow must be taken seriously. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to fulfill it. It is infinitely better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it. We must not allow our own mouth to lead us into sin, later protesting to the temple messenger that the vow was a mistake, thereby incurring God's anger and the destruction of our work. The principle is clear. Our words must be weighed with the gravity of God's presence, not tossed out impulsively. Returning to the issue of social injustice, the teacher reiterates the systemic nature of oppression. If you see the poor oppressed and justice denied, do not be surprised at such things, for the bureaucratic system ensures that one official is protected by another, and over them all is a hierarchical structure of power. Even the king himself profits from the fields, showing that exploitation is deeply embedded in human governance. he circles back once more to the trap of endless accumulation. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. The fundamental problem is that as possessions increase, so do the people who consume them, negating any perceived advantage for the owner, who is left only to feast their eyes on the growing hoard. The only true measure of wealth is contentment and peace, which the humble laborer possesses. The sleep of a laborer is sweet, whether they eat little or much. But as for the rich, their abundance permits them no sleep. Worry, anxiety, and the very abundance of their wealth keep them awake. He describes a new dimension of the grievous evil under the sun. Wealth hoarded to the harm of its owners, or wealth lost through a sudden misfortune, leaving the children with nothing to inherit. This reinforces the radical uncertainty of the world. The ultimate humbling truth of mortality is then repeated, the starkest challenge to all acquisition. Everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and as everyone comes, so they depart. They take nothing from their toil that they can carry in their hands. Toil, then, for the purpose of hoarding and accumulation, is revealed to be laboring for the wind. Spending all one's days in darkness with great frustration, affliction, and anger. The final recurring solace is the command to live in the now, to grasp the God-given gift of the present moment. This is what I have observed to be good, that it is appropriate for a person to eat, to drink, and to find satisfaction in their toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life God has given them. This acceptance of their lot and the ability to enjoy it, the quiet gladness of heart, is a gift of God, a form of contentment that prevents them from dwelling too much on the days of their short life. This is the profound, quiet wisdom of finding eternity in the mundane moment. We now dive into the final urgent chapter of the book of James, the practical manifesto of active faith, where the stakes are raised to their highest. James, having established the necessity of deeds, the dangers of the tongue, and the folly of worldliness, now focuses on the ultimate acts of faith, perseverance in suffering, justice for the wronged, and the profound power of communal prayer and spiritual restoration. His final words are a clarion call for the scattered believers to embody the patience of Christ, to act as agents of reconciliation, and to live in profound, continuous dependence on God through simple, honest speech. James begins with a scorching, final indictment of those rich individuals whose lives stand in stark contrast to the values of the gospel, echoing the systemic injustice observed by the teacher, but with the added weight of covenant judgment. Now listen, you rich people, weep and wail because of the misery that is coming on you. This is not merely a threat, but a prophecy of divine reckoning. Their wealth, which they relied upon so heavily, will become their downfall. Your wealth has rotted, and moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver are corroded. The perishable nature of their treasures, the very hevel the teacher lamented, is now revealed as the source of their judgment. The corrosion of their wealth will become a witness against them, eating their flesh like fire because they hoarded it in the last days. Their sin is not just accumulation, but active exploitation and oppression. James reveals the cries of the workers they defrauded. Look, the wages you failed to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty. They have lived on earth in extravagant luxury and self-indulgence, effectively fattening themselves in the day of slaughter. They have gone further, condemning and murdering the innocent one who was not opposing them, a grave injustice that God, the Almighty Lord, has heard and will surely avenge. This is a powerful final statement on the absolute moral necessity of economic justice, making it clear that the royal law of love governs the marketplace as fiercely as it governs the sanctuary in the face of this coming justice and the inevitable trials of life. James turns to the faithful to offer the antidote: patience. Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. He uses the tangible, universal image of the farmer who waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently enduring the long season for the autumn and spring rains. Just as the farmer is dependent on time and the elements, the believers must be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. This patience must also extend to one another. Don't grumble against one another, brothers and sisters, or you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door. James encourages them by pointing to historical models of endurance. Brothers and sisters, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. He highlights Job's perseverance and the Lord's ultimate compassionate and merciful outcome, reminding them that God's character is full of compassion and mercy, even when the wait is long and the suffering is intense. This divine mercy is the ground for their hope. He then issues a simple yet radical command on speech that applies to both worship and daily life. Above all, my brothers and sisters, do not swear, not by heaven or by earth or by anything else. All you need to say is a simple yes or no. Otherwise, you will be condemned. This is a call for radical honesty and integrity in every word spoken, an insistence that their commitment should be so dependable that no oath is ever needed. The gravity of their promise should rest on the purity of their character, not the force of their oath. This simple, profound demand for integrity is the ultimate taming of the tongue, where every word is a reflection of a truthful heart. The letter then moves into a passage of immense pastoral comfort, and practical spiritual guidance for handling the various conditions of the human heart and body. This is the practical application of their faith and deeds. The guidance is structured by state of being. Is anyone among you in trouble? If so, let them pray. Prayer is the first, immediate, and necessary response to affliction. Is anyone happy? If so, let them sing songs of praise. Joy should not be suppressed, but channeled into worship and gratitude. Is anyone among you ill? If so, let them call the elders of the church to pray over them and anoint them with oil in the name of the Lord. The promise is that the prayer offered in faith will make the sick person well, and the Lord will raise them up. Furthermore, if they have sinned, they will be forgiven. This is a call to communal, active care for the sick. Following this, James issues the vital command for horizontal, mutual spiritual health. Therefore, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. Healing is linked to community, honesty, and mutual intercession. He then gives the definitive statement on the effectiveness of a life lived in humble dependence. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. To prove this, he uses the example of a human being just like us, the prophet Elijah. Elijah was a human being, even as we are. Yet when he prayed earnestly that it would not rain, it did not rain on the land for 3.5 years. And when he prayed again, the heavens gave rain, and the earth produced its crops. The power of prayer is not reserved for spiritual giants. It belongs to the righteous person, the one who aligns their deeds with their faith, their heart with God's will. The letter concludes with the ultimate act of loving service, spiritual restoration. My brothers and sisters, if one of you should wander from the truth and someone should bring that person back, remember this: whoever turns a sinner from the error of their way will save them from death and cover over a multitude of sins. This is the final, compelling call to an active, merciful faith, to not only purify one's own heart and tongue, but to engage in the compassionate, loving work of bringing others back to the truth. This is the ultimate enduring meaning, transcending all the hevel of the world, for it touches the eternal destiny of the human soul. This is the synthesis of wisdom and love, recognizing the brevity of life and choosing to invest in the eternal. We return for one final deep look at the book of Ecclesiastes, now focusing on the philosophical structure of the teacher's quest and his ultimate summation, a final call to humility and fear of God as the sole enduring response to the world's pervasive hevel. This section encompasses the very beginning and the solemn conclusion, framing all the preceding observations about labor, wealth, pleasure, and wisdom. This is the moment to truly anchor the soul in the few, simple truths that transcend the weariness of the human condition. The teacher opens his rigorous inquiry with the immediate, inescapable, and utterly disheartening truth. Meaningless, meaningless, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. This powerful declaration is the premise from which all subsequent observations spring. He asks the foundational question that drives his entire exploration. What do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun? The answer consistently is nothing of ultimate, lasting value. He sees the relentless cycle of nature. Generations come and go while the earth remains. The sun rises and sets only to hurry back to rise again. The wind blows in perpetual circles, and the streams flow into the sea without filling it. All of it is wearisome. The eye and the ear are never satisfied. The great, inescapable truth that fuels the sense of futility is that what has been will be again, and what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. This profound sense of repetition, of history cycling without ultimate progress, leads to a kind of collective amnesia. No one remembers the former generations, and those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow them. The teacher, drawing on his immense wisdom, concludes that everything done under the heavens is a heavy burden, all of it meaningless, a chasing after the wind. He laments that what is crooked cannot be straightened, what is lacking cannot be counted, acknowledging the deep brokenness inherent in the world's fabric. His initial pursuit of wisdom, while noble, brought only greater sorrow. For with much wisdom comes much sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief. This is the profound paradox of human intellect. The deeper one looks at the world, the more painful its inherent contradictions become. His exhaustive testing of pleasure, wealth, and grand projects, building, planting, accumulating more than anyone before him, only confirmed the initial hypothesis. Everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. He even hated his possessions because he had to leave them to a successor whose competence was unknown, further cementing the meaninglessness of labor focused on accumulation. The only real good found was the simple, God-given satisfaction in eating, drinking, and working in the present moment, a recurring gift that provides momentary solace. The teacher's analysis of human fate is especially sobering, challenging any human presumption of superiority. He observes that the same fate awaits both humans and animals. As one dies, so dies the other. All have the same breath. Humans have no advantage over animals. Everything is meaningless. All go to the same place. All come from dust, and to dust all return. He questions the spiritual distinction. Who knows if the human spirit rises upward, and if the spirit of the animal goes down into the earth? Because this knowledge is withheld, the most reliable course of action is, once more, to enjoy one's work, because that is their lot, and no one can bring them back to see what will happen after them. The focus must be on the here and now, the tangible duty and pleasure of the present moment. He reiterates the principle of divine sovereignty over all matters of life and time. The time for everything passage is the central assertion of God's complete, beautiful orchestration of life, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to keep and a time to throw away. God has made everything beautiful in its time and has set eternity in the human heart. Yet this inherent longing for the infinite is coupled with the inability to fathom what God has done from beginning to end. This tension between the eternal implanted within us and the fleeting reality around us is the engine of the teacher's quest. The conclusion remains, I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live. For this ability to find satisfaction in their toil is the gift of God. Everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it or taken from it. God does it so that people will fear him. In his final, profound chapter, the teacher brings the entire discussion to its ultimate focus, the transition from youth to inevitable decline. He urges us one final time, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come, and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. He then gives a beautiful, heart-wrenching, poetic description of old age, the failing light of the sun, moon, and stars, the trembling of the keepers of the house, the hands, the stooping of the strong men, the legs, the ceasing of the grinders, the teeth, and those looking through the windows growing dim, the eyes. This is the irreversible decay that leads to the final universal destination. Then people go to their eternal home, and mourners go about the streets. He uses the final evocative metaphors of a fragile life breaking apart. The severing of the silver cord, the shattering of the golden bowl at the fountain, the breaking of the pitcher at the spring, and the wheel at the well. These powerful images signify the complete cessation of life, the dust returning to the ground it came from, and the spirit returning to God who gave it. After all the striving, all the wisdom, all the pleasure, and all the frustration, the teacher repeats his original, essential declaration with solemn finality. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is meaningless. Yet this is not the end of the book. The closing words turn to the value of the teacher's wisdom and provide the concluding summary that reframes the entire quest. He was not only wise, but he diligently searched out and set in order many upright and true proverbs, seeking to find just the right words. His collected sayings are like firmly embedded nails, the ultimate, final, absolute conclusion of the matter, the singular action that redeems the brevity and futility of life lived under the sun is this: now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. The reason for this duty is clear, uniting the sovereignty of Ecclesiastes with the judgment of James. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. The meaning we seek is not found in the world's offerings, but in a humble, obedient relationship with the eternal Judge, the source of all that is enduring. We come now to the 9th and final block of our spiritual reflection, a synthesis that draws the demanding, action-oriented faith of James into the reflective, existence-questioning framework of Ecclesiastes. This is where the tension resolves, not in a complex theological formula, but in a profound, simple call to embodied, present, and compassionate living, firmly rooted in the certainty of God's coming judgment and boundless mercy. This final perspective is designed to send you back into the world, not with heavier burdens, but with a lighter spirit, having laid your anxieties at the feet of the Eternal. The core challenge from James that must anchor our daily actions is the necessity of an active, practical faith. We have learned that professing faith while ignoring the needs of the marginalized, the naked, the hungry, the sick, is to possess a faith that is dead. The wisdom that comes from above is not measured by theological degrees, but by its fruits: purity, peace, consideration, and mercy. This pure religion is definitively characterized by looking after orphans and widows in their distress, and maintaining personal holiness by remaining unpolluted by the world's selfish desires. This active love is the only thing that survives the fire of Hevel. It is the one thing that is not chasing after the wind. This active engagement stands in beautiful contrast to the teacher's conclusion. While Ecclesiastes warned that even the wise are forgotten, and that all human toil leads to nothing carried in the hand, it offered the divine gift of present enjoyment as the only true profit. James, in essence, tells us how to best spend that gift by dedicating our transient time and energy to acts of eternal consequence, acts of mercy and humility. The enjoyment of life, as seen by the teacher, is not a hedonistic indulgence, but the deep, quiet satisfaction of a soul at peace, a gift given by God to the one who fears him. This peace is best preserved when we are quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, channeling our energy away from self-destructive internal battles and outward conflicts. The warning against the arrogant assumption of control over the future, where life is described as a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes, is not meant to paralyze us. Instead, it is a call to radical humility in our planning, to always preface our intentions with, "If it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. This surrender of autonomy to the sovereignty of God, a direct response to the teacher's observation that no one knows the future, frees us from the crushing anxiety of needing to control outcomes. Our efforts are still required. We must sow our seed in the morning and evening, but the success of the harvest is humbly released into God's hand. We are reminded that the ultimate judge is the one who will bring every hidden thing into the light. This certainty of judgment, articulated in the conclusion of Ecclesiastes and the warnings of James, is the foundation for our moral urgency. But the fear of judgment is always tempered by the promise of grace. James assures us that God gives us more grace and shows favor to the humble. The way out of the destructive cycle of selfish desire and worldly friendship is through submission to God, resistance to temptation, and heartfelt repentance, leading to the promise. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and He will lift you up. The ultimate triumph is not found in avoiding suffering, but in enduring trials with patience, knowing that the testing of faith produces perseverance and leads to the crown of life. Therefore, as we close this period of rest and reflection, let the wisdom of these two ancient voices merge in your heart. Let the sobriety of the teacher ground you, reminding you that your career, your possessions, and your striving will all turn to vapor, to hevel. This is not despair, it is freedom. It is the freedom to invest your heart only in what is eternal. And let the urgency of James inspire you to action, reminding you that your faith must be visible, active, and defined by concrete acts of love and integrity. The true work of your life, the one thing that is not meaningless, is the cultivation of a sincere, merciful heart and the simple, profound act of caring for your neighbor. So then, go forth, not to chase the wind, but to sow peace, to pray with power, and to live with humble confidence, knowing that the judge stands at the door, but that mercy triumphs over judgment. Rest in the knowledge that your Creator remembers you, and your small acts of kindness done in His name have eternal weight. Senhor, que a nossa jornada termine na quietude da Tua presença, que a nossa fé seja refúgio para os outros e que as nossas palavras sejam sementes de vida. Concede-nos a graça de sair deste momento de paz com a coragem de viver ativamente a Tua justiça e o Teu amor. Amém. If this journey of rest and deep reflection has touched your heart and offered you a moment of true peace, please consider taking a moment to subscribe to this channel. Your subscription is more than just a click. It's a profound affirmation that this gentle, quiet space is needed in the loud chaos of the world, and it helps us ensure these messages reach others who are searching for the same sense of sanctuary. And as a community, we thrive on shared stories, on the quiet testimony of grace at work in everyday lives. I invite you now to share a story, just a few sentences, about a time this week when you chose to act on mercy rather than judgment, whether it was with a stranger, a colleague, or even yourself. Tell us if you were able to hold your tongue, or if you were quick to help someone without expecting anything in return. Did this reflection change the way you see your daily toil or your plans for tomorrow? What is the one lasting lesson you will carry from the fusion of Ecclesiastes and James? Share your reflections and stories below, and let us uplift one another with the proof that an active, merciful faith is alive and well in the world. Thank you for resting with us under the stars. May you walk in peace and courage.